You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com.
And oh yeah, I hate to say it, if I hit the lottery anytime soon, I hit the lottery and I get enough money, I'm buying Jerry out. I'm buying Jerry Rutherford out. I would own the White Sox.
Who's Jerry Rutherford?
I go up there in a heartbeat and I buy the White Sox. So you sit there and talk all the trash you want. You talk all the trash you want about me. But I guarantee you, when I have 8 championships, 9 championships, 10 championships,
right.
12 championships.
12!
Then everybody got to know their role. They got to know their role.
I'm down.
And know how to smoke it, know how to drink it, know how to spit it, chew it. I have MVPs.
Yeah.
I got Cy Young Awards.
Damn
Triple
right.
Crowns.
Right.
Yeah, I went that extra mile. They ain't chewing that stuff. They ain't smoking that stuff. They ain't drinking that stuff. They ain't doing nothing.
They ain't doing
They're
nothing.
eating steaks and burgers and getting all fat. I'm going after Brodus Chapman. Have to take care of Joe Kelly's spot.
All right. He had me there for a moment. Even with the smoking that stuff and drinking that stuff and Jerry, whatever last name that he gave Jerry Reinsdorf there, I think he called him Jerry Rutherford, is getting fat on cheeseburgers. He had me. I had the passion and the fire. He's going to win the lottery. He's coming up here from Kentucky, and he is going to run the White Sox, 12 championships. I'm buying in. I'm all in, until he told me he was just going to bring in another relief pitcher to replace a relief pitcher that we still have under contract and we're stuck with Joe Kelly. Like, the one thing the White Sox don't need this offseason is more relief pitchers.
You can go out and sign some minor league free agents and some quad A guys that you think might be useful relievers. But yeah, I don't think that that's the savior we're looking for. If it's just going to be come up here and bring in another Joe Kelly to replace the current Joe Kelly.
I don't need more relief pitchers. Not in any way whatsoever. Forget it. I'm done. We have plenty of relief pitchers. We've got a lot of them under contract that I'm not even happy are on the team, and I don't know how this guy in the front office is going to find a way to trade them away for anything better. Sox in the Basement is brought to you proudly by Family Waterproofing Solutions for anything from sump pumps, gutter cleaning, yard draining systems, keeping water out of your basement. Give them a call. Mention Sox in the Basement. You get a deep discount, 708-330-4466. See what a difference a family makes at familydry.com. I find it interesting that the White Sox are pushing, even harder than they're pushing the message about getting a new manager, are pushing the message that Jose Abreu is not coming back. They are doing their damnedest to make sure you're prepared for Abreu not to return to the White Sox. Bob Nightingale over the weekend reporting that the White Sox are not bringing back Jose Abreu. This comes after Scott Greger was on this show and said, based upon the conversations he heard covering the team, on the beat, in the dugout, listening to Abreu, listening to Hahn, that he didn't think there was any chance that Abreu was coming back. It would be a slim to none type deal. I'm paraphrasing there, that he would come back. This seems to be the main goal of the organization at this point, is to prep their fans for the fact that Jose Abreu is no longer going to be part of this organization.
Which we've been saying for several months anyway, that, you should brace yourself for the fact that Jose Abreu may not want to come back to the White Sox, that Jose Abreu may not be in the budget for the White Sox, that Jose Abreu was sort of planned obsolescence at this point in his career, or, simply that he wants to go to another organization where he feels like he's got a better chance. And whatever it is, but yeah, this is the state of things, right? We're supposed to be talking about, even now, okay, after a bad year, after a year where a lot of things went wrong, we should be talking about the White Sox prepping to take this core to that next level and trying to fix some of the things that went wrong, trying to bolster some of the areas that showed some weakness. And instead, we're starting the offseason with, by the way, the most popular player, or one of the most popular players on the team for the past decade, will not be here. We're not going to say why, but just, we wish him well and everybody loves him. And, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether or not, you want a manager that's got significant experience like Bruce Bochy, or you want to take a chance on a highly sought after bench coach or somebody who's on the come up. Nope. We're talking about Jose Abreu. We're talking about the fact that the guy's not coming back. Oh, and also, by the way, Sox fans, you should be disappointed, not because your favorite player's not coming back, not because you've owned the man's jersey for all these years, but you should be disappointed because after a full-on rebuild, supposedly, a 35-year-old right-handed hitting first baseman is still the second best hitter on your team.
That's what you should be mad about. Let's be honest. I mean, that's the thing that should really get you.
And he's not an all-star.
Right. And one of the things that's bothering me this week, it kind of really aggravating me today, mostly, as we sit down and we record on Monday for the episode that you're listening to right now that came out on Tuesday, anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. The thing that's annoying me today are the 1 year ago today was Game 3. 1 year ago today was our greatest night ever. 1 year ago today was my favorite White Sox memory. And that really bothers me because it shows me there's an entire generation of fan that has been so deprived by this organization, by this owner who's had the team for over 4 decades, and by this front office that's been in place for over 2 decades, because you really start this front office when Kenny Williams walked in the door. There really hasn't been much of a change. It's the same thing. We're just shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic every year when it comes time to look at our front office and who's running this team. But if that's the greatest memory that a generation of White Sox fans have, a night in which everything went right, it was exciting. I was there. It was one of the loudest times that I ever heard that stadium. I heard that stadium just rocking. It also rocked in 08 during Game 163. I was there. It also rocked for Game 1 of the World Series. I was standing at that game as well. It's not the only time that the stadium has ever rocked before, okay? Now, but if it was the only time you saw it rock that way, what does that say about the organization? Because it took about 12 years in between 08 when they finally got in front of a fan base to have a game, and they lost the series 3-1. Like, it was exciting, but if that's all we got is that one win, and remember, this is the one win where also the stadium was operating at 100%. People who walked in at Game 3 got a towel that had like a commemorative thing on it. The bars were stacked. You could get any kind of beer you wanted in the place. All the food was available to you. All the amenities were available to you. On the 300 level, they just marched out every cart that used to be there before the pandemic. The place was open for business. And when you came back for Game 4, the organization didn't even expect them to be there because half the beer was gone. They were running out of things by the 6th inning, food-wise and drink-wise. Half of the stuff was closed in the ballpark, even though you had just had a Game 3, because the owner can't lose any money, right? It's like, get rid of inventory. I don't think this team's making it to the next round. And the towels were something they bought at the dollar store, it looked like, because there was nothing on it, just a regular black towel. Like, I remember walking in the game going, even the team doesn't believe we're going to win this game, let alone the series. Look at what they've done here in this game. So whenever I have memories of Game 3, what I remember is, well, it was fun. I remember my sister and I were there. We were screaming our butts off. We had an awful lot of fun at that game. But I also remember the fact that you only won one game in that postseason, and even your organization didn't believe you're going to win Game 4. Because when you walked in the ballpark in Game 4, it was like a completely torn down experience after Game 3. That's what I remember. That's not my greatest memory. I'll reserve my greatest White Sox nights for other nights that meant a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand. You're right. Okay, so it's 2005 is now almost 20 years ago, which means that you've got people who were kids, were not at the game, don't remember. You got people who were young and, recency bias will say that last year was much better than 08, much better than 05. But, I mean, come on. Scott Posednik walking off Game 2. That's not your favorite White Sox memory?
Yeah, better experience. Game one. Bobby Jenks walking in and Ozzie Guillen doing the bring me the big guy and the Houston you have a problem signs, and you win Game 1 of a World Series. That wasn't the greatest night. I mean, and let's just go with like first round games. When they took on Boston and we were used to just always being eliminated, and we smoked the Red Sox, and they're singing na 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 hey hey goodbye in Game 1 of that series as a former Cub pitcher was coming off the mound, and we were just destroying them in that game. And those are all moments in my mind that rank higher than Game 3. Was Game 3 an experience? Sure. We were coming out of a pandemic. It was the first time you really got to go to something like that after years of just the way that the world was different. And it was the first time back to the postseason in 12 years. Great memory. Great memory. But like some of the ways that people have been celebrating it this week, like, oh, 1 year ago today, where were you? It depresses me because it reminds me of the fact that we have a team that in their competitive window never got through the first round of the postseason after 2 chances to go to that postseason, only won that game last year and lost 3 games to 1, and now has all kinds of problems with bad contracts, guys leaving, Abreu's probably not coming back, and all these question marks, and you're still looking for another manager with the same people in charge. So every time I look at it, I don't have fond memories because it triggers me. I'm going to use a word that the generation behind me uses a lot. I don't normally do it, but it does. It really gets at me.
You're triggered.
And I'm triggered. I need to go to a happy place.
Your gears are officially grinding.
Right, exactly. It bothers me because it reminds me of what could have been and what wasn't.
Well, and to your point, here we go with an offseason that is starting with wistful memories of the one game that we got over on the Astros and is going to proceed with the same old crew trying to fix the problems that they created in the first place.
Exactly. If you have some problems around the house, let's say that you're a fall risk or you have a family member who's a fall risk, especially if mom and dad are getting a little bit older, it's time to switch to a new age of life. It's all about making the home into a smart home, and Hyatt Home Medical Equipment is going to do that for you. Doors that open and close with the touch of a button on an app, systems that'll get people from the first floor to the second floor, really incredible technology when it comes to CPAP machines for sleep apnea or diabetes control. They can retrofit the bathtub. They can make the house safer. A lot of people, when they get older, fall down in the home. The home actually becomes a dangerous place. You can take that danger out of the home. You don't need to go to assisted living. All you have to do is check out Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. They work with your insurance company, and there is a deep discount whenever you mention Sox in the Basement. Check out all they have to offer at hhme.com or stop in and see them. Ask any question you would like at 3518 West 95th Street in Evergreen Park. One of the things that I would like to do today is kind of go through this roster and just ask the simple question, will this player be better or worse next year? Like what your gut feeling is on the player. Do you think we can do that for a little bit here?
I think you could hit all 40 and I would have a strong opinion on him.
That's awesome. All right, well then we're going to do it. We'll move around the horn. I might not get every catcher in a row, every first baseman in a row, but
it's okay. It's okay.
We'll try to move through this and we'll go with even people that are leaving the team that, theoretically they could bring back, although it doesn't sound to me like Abreu's coming back. And I don't know why Johnny Cueto would sign up to be part of this mess. He didn't seem like he was very happy a lot of times during the season. He was like, what the heck is going on with these guys? Remember, he made some comments. He's going to get paid, I think, in this offseason. And the White Sox, I don't think they're bringing back Johnny Cueto either. Yasmani Grandal, let's start off with him. Here's a guy who hit 202 with a 570 OPS. When you look at Yasmani Grandal, do you think he'll be better or worse next year? And I feel like this one's loaded, Ed, because it feels like the only thing he can do is do better, right? Like there's no way he could be worse.
No, he could actually somehow be worse. He's in his decline phase. There's nothing more I can say about it. It's just he's in his decline. He is an old catcher. Old catchers fall apart fast. They don't fade away. They're done one day. That's it. So yeah, I think next year he could actually probably be worse.
And if you don't believe catchers can get old real quick and then all of a sudden it's over, just look at White Sox history and remember the time that they gave Carlton Fisk a motorcycle to go away halfway through the year. Like, we probably shouldn't even have started the season with you, Pudge. Like, it happens very quickly. Like, and he is declining terribly. I want to read, we had Scott White on here from CBS Sports talking fantasy baseball. And at the moment we started talking about Yasmani, I had to punch it right into my computer here on the bar because I remember reading his name in the catcher rankings for next year, where he's talking about performance of players. And he's got Grandal 14th amongst possible catchers in fantasy baseball. But his only reasoning, listen to this, is I have nothing good to say about Grandal's 2022. And seeing he'll be 34 next year, it's possible he simply reached the end of his rope. But there comes a point at this position in particular where your best hope is simply to shoot for upside, and the possibility of a bounce back season with improved health isn't so far-fetched. So he's basically saying, I wouldn't even put him on this list, but what if he bounces back? Like, it's fantasy sports. I put him 14th, so he's definitely a backup, so you're just taking a flyer on him. Like, that's the best hope for Yasmani Grandal from somebody who looks at players and tries to figure out performance year to year.
Yeah, essentially, he didn't want to use the phrase dead cat bounce, but that's what you're asking for. It's a dead cat bounce.
All right, next guy, Jose Abreu, 304 batting average, 824 OPS. He hit 15 home runs only this year. And we talk about whether or not he comes back or not. I know that I personally, it's not ripping me off that he's not coming back if the money from his contract this year is going towards something else, and because you have Andrew Vaughn available. I'm not saying that Andrew Vaughn is a better player than Jose Abreu right now, but I am saying you have to mix things up somewhere. And I personally would choose the younger player with the high upside than the guy who is declining. So obviously I think he continues to decline, even though he will be a very good Major League Baseball player next year for whatever team he plays for. What do you see him as?
I think the power is going to continue to drop. So I think that OPS goes down. I think the batting average can stay high, but at some point, Jose Abreu is a high batting average, low power guy, isn't Jose Abreu, right? So I think the man could probably hit until he's 40. I just don't know that he is ever going to be what he was in his prime for the White Sox. So I think he starts to fall apart a little bit more.
I think the same thing. He could hit till he's 40, and he might even have like one of those years where he jumps up and hits 30 home runs, and it's like, oh man, look at this. It's amazing he's doing this, and they're talking about it. Kind of like with Albert Pujols at the very end here, where he does something where it's incredible that, like, if you look at Pujols' last few years before this year, he was down statistically in power numbers and batting, everything, his WRC plus, all of his advanced stats, and now he's back up to a threshold that he hadn't been to in years. Like, you could see one more year of that of Jose Abreu, but there's not a guarantee that it's next year. It could just be something that happens before he retires.
I think it's also going to be park specific. Like, if he goes to Cincinnati, I think he could hit 30 home runs playing in the Great American Ballpark, because that place is a launching pad.
Right.
But if he's here, or, a lot of other stadiums around the majors, I think the power is going to continue to slip. That's what happens. You get old, you lose the punch.
Yeah. Ever since they did the thing with the humidors this year, this is not a home run ballpark, it seems like. I mean, I don't know how much of it's...
not as much as it once was.
Still, the White Sox were down this year. They should have done better. But I don't think it's the same kind of ballpark as the Great American Ballpark. Let's look at Andrew Vaughn then, because we were talking about Abreu, and everybody's immediately going to say, well, what about Andrew Vaughn? Andrew Vaughn, 271 with a 750 OPS. He's up in both of those categories from the year before in his sophomore season. He had 17 home runs over 555 plate appearances. He's 24 years old. Better or worse next year?
Better. That man is on an upswing. We have just started to see this. Remember, we're only a couple of years away from you and I sitting here complaining that they were hanging their championship DH hats on a guy with like 55 minor league games under his belt because he didn't have anything during the pandemic year. So what you saw last year was really his AAA year, his AA, AAA year that he never really got a chance to have. This year was effectively his rookie season as far as I'm concerned. And if you don't think that he made adjustments from last year to this year, or even adjustments during the season, you really weren't paying attention. Andrew Vaughn is going to be a much better hitter statistically than he was this year. And the eyeball test will also, he's going to be the man for this team. Him and Eloy Jimenez, I think, are the two guys that are going to lead the offensive charge next year. So Andrew Vaughn definitely on the upswing.
And if he has a manager that's using him in the right way, and if he's playing a position where he's not so uncomfortable, because as many times as he tells you, I think I can do this thing in the outfield, and he can work out there, I think as Scott Greger said on our last show, you take that stress of standing out there trying to just do a passable corner outfield and put him over at first base, and that also should provide a boost for him. I think he has his best season ever, and I think he continues to go on the upswing. Again, I can't sit here and tell you that Andrew Vaughn will be more valuable than Jose Abreu next year, but there is the possibility that he does it. And in the long term, I still believe in this kid. Like everybody was like, oh, go ahead and trade Andrew Vaughn, right? Like I've seen this. It's like a popular take that some people have. Well, you should trade Vaughn and keep Abreu because I love Abreu because Abreu is like my favorite player and I have 3 of his jerseys and he's the GOAT. And in reality, he's this generation's best player, right? It'd be like if you're trading Frank Thomas from our generation.
Right.
Right? I mean, like that's what it is. And so he's this generation's great guy who's been around with the organization through the ups and the downs and has had some big moments and is a great hitter and he's in the middle of the order and you like him and he's a personable guy. And so you have a little bit of bias towards him. But to me, moving on from a guy who had like 50 at bats or something, or 50 games or something like that in the minors after he was drafted, came out and had a pretty good, under the circumstances, playing out of position, really good season in his rookie year. And then in his sophomore year added to that and continues to be on the upswing and is a very good hitter who can hit for power, hit for average, put it all over the field. It is stupid to take years and years of that production and knowing where his ceiling is and say, well, I'm going to trade him and keep Jose Abreu. Now I know that people say, well, he's a great trade piece. That is true. He's a great trade piece. But I also look at him as he's also one of your good pieces that you don't really want to move on from. I mean, he's one of those guys. I'm going to have a hard time if they trade Andrew Vaughn, as some people have suggested, to try to get something.
But try to get something. You can't just trade Andrew Vaughn to try and get something. If you trade Andrew Vaughn, you have got to basically take a championship roster and put it on the White Sox with that man's trade, right?
Right.
It's got to be something where you plug every single hole with a major league quality, above average, if not all-star position filling player. Like this is not trade Andrew Vaughn and get the number 1 prospect in baseball. You do that, it'll be Cubs in the basement before I have it.
Bite your tongue. It'll never be that. Hailstorm Brewing Company is an incredible beer hall that happens to be a brewery. And I always like sitting inside of breweries and seeing what they're doing and watching them brew the beer. And the brewer comes out, talks about what he's making. You can see the process, but it's also a big, giant beer hall. I mean, they do have one big flat screen that they can bring down if there's like a really important game on TV. But really, it's all about getting together with the community, sitting at those big, long tables, eating some good food, drinking from their extensive menu of beers. And this is my favorite time of year to sit down and try fall going into winter beers. Hailstorm has an incredible selection, and Will Turner, their brewer that started at the beginning of the year, is killing it over there, man. I really enjoy getting over there. It's a long drive for me from Evergreen Park, and I still make it up there every other week. I do. 8060 186th Street, right in Tinley Park, right off of 80th Avenue. If you're in the area or you want to make a trip to check out the Tinley Park brewery scene, because there's a few of them out there, and Hailstorm sits right in the middle, I think, and they are the best one out there. They got the outdoor patio with the fire pits for chilly evenings. It's a perfect time for that. Live music on the weekends, trivia nights, and other fun events. Go check out their entire lineup. See all of their events. Follow their Facebook page at Hailstorm Brewing Co., or just check them out at hailstormbrewing.com. Let's move on through the list here. I don't think we're going to get to everybody here in this episode as I'm going along.
Well, we can pretty much skip second base, right? Because real quickly, what do we got? Romy Gonzalez, basically?
Everybody keeps trying to push the sign Elvis Andrus and have him play second base. We heard it when we were up in that skybox with the season ticket holders that we talked about on the last show.
You're right.
Well, they should sign Elvis Andrus. And you can't say that he didn't have a really nice period of time with the White Sox. Like he was red hot, he cooled off, then he got hot again towards the end, and he finished with great numbers for the Sox. And he's a very good defensive player. He's also never played second base before. And on one hand, if you're going to go out and get a second baseman, he may be your best option. On the other hand, I don't know if that's what you're going to spend your money on, depending on what your payroll is. You have albatross contracts. Like, I want to see him get rid of Larry Garcia. I don't know how Rick Hahn's getting rid of that $11 million and still keeping his job. Although it seems like he's Teflon and he can do whatever he wants to in that front office because Jerry trusts them all, and we can't really get an explanation from the owner as to why these people are still employed. But like there are some problems that they have on their roster with guys they're spending a lot of money on that unless they release them, these guys are taking up space. And I don't know. I don't know if Andrus is who they go out and get. I'll ask that question. Elvis Andrus, you just saw what he did with the White Sox. Is he going to do the same thing next year in a full season of 162? Or is this a guy in the back end of his career that was in the middle of a pennant chase, put in the exact right position he should be, at the top of that lineup, because he had all that protection behind him? You bring him in and put him in a position that he doesn't normally play, and he bats towards the bottom because Tim Anderson says, I'm the number one hitter. Is he the same guy next year?
No, he's more like what he was for the Rangers and for the A's before he got DFA'd by the A's. So I look, again, you're right. Signing Elvis Andrus may make all the sense in the world given the market, but he's not going to be better than he was when he got to the White Sox this year. That's for sure. And I don't think they have anybody right now that you would sit there and say is going to dramatically improve that would play second base for them. Maybe Lennon Sosa, because he's still a prospect and still has an opportunity to grow, right? But Romy Gonzalez, I think, he is what he is, kind of. He's not a real star player, and maybe he can turn a page too because he's still young. But Larry Garcia is established. Elvis Andrus, look at his recent history. He's established. These are not guys that are going to show up and do something drastically different than what they've done in the past. Same thing with Tim Anderson, moving on to shortstop, right? Do you think TA gets better?
He's a 301, 734 OPS, would be a great addition to the $1,000 guest bounty brought to you by Parente and Norum. We're giving away $1,000 for the best guest of the offseason. I don't know if he would come on this show. I mean, let's be honest. When he's good,
I'd love to have him, though.
We rattle the sabers and say that he's a great guy to have on the team, but it also seems like he may be upset that I suggested that he's got a contract that's perfect for trading and that he wasn't all the way there mentally at certain points of this season. So who knows? But if you could get him on the show and fans vote him to be the best guest of the offseason, you win $1,000. Parente and Norum helping us do this. Call or text them today at 312-641-5926 or visit pninjurylaw.com for a free case evaluation. They've gotten over $400 million for their injured clients. They are like the Yankees, I would say, of folks that go out and take care of injuries on the job or personal injuries or anything along those lines. But he would be an interesting guest. But let's look at him right now for next year. I think that he gets better because if he doesn't, that's a problem. Like if you're keeping him around and he goes down from 301 with a 734 OPS because the power wasn't there this year, only 6 home runs in his small sample size, you have an issue because he's not doing it with his glove. He's basically, you're lucky if he breaks even with his glove defensively.
Yeah, and again, Anderson is a guy that it's been interesting to watch him challenge for those batting titles because a lot of people sit there and go, well, I don't know how he's doing it. It's not like he's a huge high exit velocity guy. I mean, he's got some metrics that back it up, but I do think he actually is better than what he showed this year. I think he's a more complete hitter than what he showed this year. I do think there would be more power. I think there would be kind of more of a clutch factor for him. I also do think the batting average could climb up again from 302. I think Tim Anderson has a rebound year next year, honestly. I think he comes back up.
Well, I think the drama that he was going through this year, self-inflicted drama from what you could tell, the drama he's going through this year affected him. We know what happened when that tragedy struck with his friend and how it affected him a few years back.
It definitely affected him, yeah.
He definitely gets affected by things that are going on off the field. And why not? He's human. I think most of us would be affected by things going on off the field. So if it's all cleaned up, I see no reason why he wouldn't have the arrow pointing up and have a better year next year and go back to what you expect Tim Anderson to be. All right, we're running out of time. So I'm just going to name some names and who I all think are going to be down, if not exactly the same next year. You tell me if you disagree with any of them. Yohan Moncada, AJ Pollock, well, those are definitely down. Let's say Eloy Jimenez continues to get better. I think he's going to have a huge year next year. I can't imagine Luis Robert doing worse than this year, so I still think he's a better player next year. Do you disagree with any of those?
No, I think Eloy and Luis Robert are two guys that are still on the upswing, and they need to stay healthy. If they stay healthy, it would really help us. But if they stay healthy, it would. I think you'd see another level for both of those guys. Yohan Moncada, I'm over Yohan Moncada. I'm sorry to say, I don't know what he can reinvent himself as, but he's got to figure something out at the plate. Otherwise, he is falling into this chasm of being a completely, just almost Yasmani Grandal-like.
Listen, like a good year for him in my mind is 250. That's what I think. I think like right now when I look at him, I go, man, if he could hit 250, it'd be amazing.
250, 260 from him would be lovely. The other one guy that I could see actually having a better year is AJ Pollock. I know I've tended to go on young guys good, old guys bad, but if Pollock's given an opportunity to play every day and isn't platooned the way he was, and is given a chance to get some at bats against right-handers, he's a streaky guy, but I could see him putting together a good season.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.